This video discusses some heavy topics, and normally I wouldn't monetize a video with any sensitive topics involved, but you might have had to watch an ad before or even during this video, so I do have this one monetized. I'll explain why that is somewhere in the video. I hope you understand. It's for a good cause. On March 27th, 2026, there was a tragic, fatal accident on the Greek island Kalymnos. Kalymnos is a place that is extremely dear to my heart. It's the first place I went sport climbing abroad. It's the first time I experienced the joy of climbing on massive limestone cliffs. So this accident kind of hits close to home. The reason I chose to go to Kalymnos for my first trip is because it's known for being well equipped, well bolted and pretty safe. So it's really sad and alarming to hear that someone has passed away from a climbing accident there. And one awful detail in this news is that there appears to be no error on the climber's part here, which makes it even more tragic. Whenever anything like this happens in our community, I think it's important to try and understand what happened and why it happened in order to try and prevent things like this happening again in the future. To better understand what happened and the situation, I got in touch with Katie Roussos and Dimi Eurolimpos, who run Rebolt Kalymnos. Rebolt Kalymnos is a non-profit organisation that aims to re-equip ageing hardware around the island of Kalymnos. I'm joined with Katie and Dimi from Rebolt Kalymnos. I guess we could just jump straight in, guys. And is it possible to understand what actually happened?
Yeah, go ahead.
We obviously haven't been there, and we've sent two experienced guides and instructors to have a look. Actually, three may have ended up, but we got two separate reports. So what we think has happened is due to corrosion, both bolts at the anchor failed, while the victim was cleaning the route, going from up to the bottom to clean the pictures. And after cleaning two of the pictures below the anchor snapped. Both bolts got broken, and the resulting fall in force potentially broke the bolt right below, the third to last bolt. And then the slack in the system was enough to hit an intermediate ledge. According to those reports and from people that were in the incident around the victim, the victim was responsive and in good shape for a few hours, and passed away from potential internal bleeding later, as the rescue took hours to complete.
And this happened at Jurassic Park, right?
Yes, which
Correct.
is hard to hike to. It's a long hike and quite a challenging one. It has a couple of drops, if I'm not mistaken. With you need ropes, even if you're just in good health and just trying to get there. It needs a little bit of scrambling and climbing at a couple of spots to get there. So yeah, it wasn't the easiest.
Yeah,
definitely not the easiest sector to perform a rescue from.
These are inexperienced climbers, and from your Instagram post, it seems clear that there was no climber error here.
Not as far as we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just a legitimate hardware failure.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's really quite alarming to hear that the climber did nothing wrong here. We have some photos of the hardware, and it's pretty clear to see that both bolts in the anchor have actually sheared. They're very rusted, very corroded hardware. However, I would say that I've definitely climbed on routes where the hardware looks worse than this. So if I had been on this route, I wouldn't have thought that would be problematic from the knowledge I have now. I would have just thought that looks fine. Also, the climber had a draw in below the anchor. I think it was 3 bolts down, And that bolt also broke, which just makes this even more sad, because he followed the generally accepted convention for cleaning sport routes. So there was nothing he did wrong here. It's just a tragic hardware failure. So we know what actually failed, but the question is, why did this happen? I've heard of hangers falling off, of bolts falling out, and of the actual rock around the bolt failing, but I've never heard of a bolt like shearing like that, let alone 2 or 3 bolts all going in exactly the same manner. So why did this happen?
With a grain of salt, because I'm not a metallurgical expert and I'm not an equipper myself. However, I know that this route, it was called Saint Savas. It was a 7B plus. It was bolted in 2002. So it was 24-year-old hardware. That was the original hardware. As far as we know, we've never heard of anybody ever rebolting that route. So as far as we know, this was the original hardware. At the time, in 2002, it was what they used. I think the brand of the bolt itself is not identified. It was either Petzl or Spit. The hangers were Petzl. But again, 24 years later, this route should have been rebolted. But there are many routes that have to be rebolted, and we just never got to it, unfortunately. And it's shattering. Just it's really heavy knowing that we weren't able to prevent this. So it was old. And again, I have no stress corrosion knowledge, but I have seen all the discussions online. I've seen the pictures of the bolts. I think everybody has. The bolts broke. They didn't come out of the rock. There was no piece of rock that came loose. The bolts failed.
Just from the images that I've seen myself, that everyone's has access to, it looks like corrosion is probably the main factor here, right?
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
I know that they've made the anchor and the bolts from the anchor available for testing with the UIAA, and I think the goal is to also get some of those bolts independently tested as well. So
the route is very old, 24 years old, and hadn't been rebolted as far as anyone knows. And also, this is not a super popular route. If I go on to UKC, which is a logging website that I use, it only has 11 logs, and other routes around that route in that same crag have like near enough 700 logs. It's a 1-star route with very little traffic. It's not been rebolted ever, and there's just not really enough traffic for anyone to report when things are looking bad. Clearly, in a place like Kalymnos, an island surrounded by salty sea air with 4,500 routes, 24 years is way beyond the life expectancy of steel expansion bolts. But whose job is it to rebolt a route like this? Whose job is it who pays for that? Who reports that? Who keeps track of when it was done and what material it was rebolted with? Well, that's where these organised groups like Rebolt Kalymnos come into play. What is Rebolt Kalymnos? How does it work?
Rebolt Kalymnos is a registered Greek nonprofit association. It was created entirely by climbers who have a long and deep relationship with the island. Most of us, if not all of us, spend at least half of our lives on Kalymnos. Some of us live there full time. Other people like Ari's, my partner, and myself, we live there half the time. We've been active there for decades. And all of us have watched it sort of come of age, if I can use that expression for an island. We watched the climbing grow, I think at first with wonder, because it's just given everybody so much joy, and then with a growing sense of alarm, because it was growing and growing and kept growing, and people kept coming. And Because I'm involved with writing the local guidebook, and that job alone brings us to the crag all the time. And it's made us sort of recognizable in that people come up to us and they were reporting issues to us more and more at the crag. So I think all of us, because we were all friends from before, we were trying individually to do things to help out. Here, let's, buy some bolts out of pocket and give them to people and ask them to go change this anchor or change 3 bolts here or clean some loose rock there. And that just isn't sustainable when you have over 4,000 roots. It's just not sustainable. So one night it was... These are, yes, they're long. Yes. And
they're well bolted as well.
I was just going to say, and they're densely bolted. We don't skimp on bolts.
No.
And that's one of the things that also makes Kalymnos special, right? It's not just the landscape. It's not just the limestone. It's for people like me who are scared when they climb. So, so it was exactly 2 years ago. One night, Aris and I were at home in Masuri, and Niels, one of our core members, knocked on our door. He came unannounced. And he walked in with like a legal pad. He had notes. And he said, I want to talk to you. So we sat down, we had a few beers, and 3 or 4 hours later, basically his idea was he was talking with another friend of his, and they were thinking, what the heck can we do? We need to do something. This cannot work. No. And so we started brainstorming and came up with this idea of let's form an association. We slept on it that night. And the next day it was just like, it just clicked. Like, this is it. We have to join forces. So then it was a few frantic months of bureaucracy, elections, voting, attorneys, accountants. And so we registered the association as a nonprofit, and we started our first official rebolting project was April of last year, 2025. We are entirely donation-based. Most of us are strictly volunteers. We do this in our spare time. And the team is growing, and, now, of course, everything has changed, like I said.
In an ideal world, or in a reasonable, practical world, how often would you rebolt a route? So is 25 years, is that way too long?
Most of the development in Kalymnos started early 2000s. Like, there are a few lines in very late 90s, but we're now, the older lines are reaching this 25-year mark.
Yeah, and I don't think that there is a rule, a time frame within which we can say all routes need to be rebolted. I think you have to understand also there's never been an actual system in place for rebolting, and that is the main reason why Rebolt Kalymnos was created. At last publication of the guidebook in 2023, we had 4,200. And now it's the estimate is that we're between 4,500 and close to 5,000, just shy of 5,000 routes. Yeah. So, obviously there needs to be a system, and there wasn't one until Rebolt Kalymnos. It was individuals doing the best that they could. And the scale is just too massive to be able to tackle every problem. Also, there wasn't really a reporting system in place until Rebolt Kalymnos was created.
Yeah.
So we started with some case-by-case repairs at crags or routes that were sorely in need of rebolting. Yeah. But also, we've already rebolted 2 entire crags in glue and titanium bolts. Secret Garden, everyone knows it, I think. And also Castelli was rebolted recently in December. All in titanium glue-ins. We haven't had a chance to communicate that yet to people, but we also completed that. So our goal, one of our main goals, is to rebolt entire sectors, all in glue and titanium.
Why glue and titanium? Is that just demonstrably better than expansion bolts, steel expansion bolts?
We go by the UIA recommendation, which gluing titanium came in. There was an early adoption in here, left and right, in early 2000s. it was not until 2015 that the UIA started recommending it for marine environments. And a couple of years later, there was the first certified titanium glue-ins out in the market. So we go by the recommendation after testing and observation from the central body that gives recommendations for these things. Titanium seems to be much more resistant to corrosion, and perhaps, I mean, in all characteristics, better to stainless steel.
So, I mean, like, how are you guys actually funded? When you say donations, is that from, like, you know, the government, or is that from people like me giving you €10? Like, how does
People
it
like
work?
you.
Yeah.
It's only people like you. It's only, as far as I know, it's only climbers. We've had no funding from any other source, but individual donations from climbers.
Yeah. So, you know, if someone's going to Kalymnos and they're climbing on all these wonderful routes that have been bolted or rebolted for them, and they wanted to help out, you know, for the future, like, would they just go onto your website and simply donate a small amount?
That's right. Yeah.
They can go donate whatever amount they can. Any amount makes a difference. And thank you in advance to everyone, and thank you to everybody who's rushed to donate after the accident.
And would you take a donation as little as €1?
Yes.
Yes, whatever people can give. There's no judgment. We appreciate every single donation. We've had a lot of people offering extra hands. We appreciate that as well. We will reach out to all of you when the need arises. But really, the main thing we need right now is funds, because titanium is expensive. We have a finite number of titanium bolts. We will need more. And really, the harsh reality is that funds are the main way to support us.
Yeah.
And also, if you're on the island, we sell our Rebolt Kalymnos t-shirts. And we sell spanners at Radosport in Masuri, where you can use those to tighten up loose nuts, because the fact remains that the majority of routes on Kalymnos are bolted with expansion bolts. And sometimes those come loose and the hangers fall off. So that's a huge help to us, actually. All proceeds from the sales of our t-shirts and the spanners go to support our work.
You know, you're encouraging just regular climbers to tighten up any loose hangers that they see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
don't tighten them too hard. You don't want to break it. But yes, because sometimes if you leave quick draws on there for a project, for example, the wind can start moving the quick draw, and actually that can start loosening the nut. And also, it's also not rare to see a loose hanger at the crux, because people take repeated falls on that bolt. So those two things usually can loosen up the nuts.
What am I doing? Am I cranking it like as hard as I possibly can? Am I just giving it a nip up?
You just need to tighten, but not extremely hard, because that can pull the bolt out just reasonably. Yeah.
Okay.
And so enough so that it's no longer moving, but not hard enough that you actually are cranking.
If one wants to go a little bit further, there is a medium glue called Loctite, or Loctite type of glue, that one can unscrew the nut, apply some glue onto the bolt, and then tighten the bolt normally as they would, and that would keep things even better together. You can always undo this glue. It's not a permanent glue, but it helps even further with this. So if people like to leave gear for a few days because they're projecting something, it's advisable to apply Loctite because of the things Katie mentioned before. The wind and falls and stuff can accelerate the untightening when you leave gear.
So organisations like Rebolt Kalymnos and countless other organisations around the world are trying to make climbing safer for people like us. And so if you've been to Kalymnos, if you've climbed on the routes and enjoyed the sport climbing there, if you're planning on going, or even if you're just got loads of spare cash, go chuck a few bucks to Rebolt Kalymnos. It's really easy to do. You can give as little as €1, probably $1, £1, whatever currency you're in, and anything that you give will support them in their endeavour to rebolt all the dangerous routes in Kalymnos and make the place safer to climb. I'm going to practice what I preach, and that's the reason that monetization is on for this video. So any money that this video generates via AdSense, that's the income from the adverts that people watch before they watch the video or during, and we're going to give that to Rebolt Kalymnos, because Kalymnos is a place that I've been twice and I am definitely going back. So this is an investment in my climbing. Obviously, Rebolt Kalymnos has this massive task ahead of them of re-equipping all the aging hardware on the island. It's not going to get done overnight, so there are going to be routes that potentially you shouldn't climb. So the question I had for Katie and Dimi was, how do climbers keep themselves safe in situations like this? How do we ensure that we as climbers are climbing on safe hardware?
You must use your own judgment. First of all, and I'm not trying to plug our guidebook, but consult the guidebook. For almost every route in there, there's the date of original equipping.
Yeah.
So check that out. If you see a route that's old, there are 4,500 others that maybe you can try if you don't feel comfortable. Visually check the condition of the routes. Some bolts they do show signs of wear. If you don't like it, don't do it. Check the list that we scrambled to upload yesterday. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Check to see if you have your eye on a specific climb, check and see if it's been rebolted, and if so, when was the rebolting and what material was used. Again, now we're starting to do titanium. The 2015 municipal rebolting project used glue-in stainless steel. It's a combination of visual cues, information from the guidebook, from our list, all of the above.
Yeah. Okay.
What I would add to this is let's have a step back and not approach sport climbing in Kalymnos or elsewhere even as given. The routes are given. What I would say is I recommend to people to find information of the route before climbing it, and look for information about the route, and also have a look from the ground and see how it looks. Not just assume everything's fine and jump on anything around you. I think that's the mentality I would like to.
Yeah.
Look for information, right, and have a look before you jump onto anything. And that's not only for Kalymnos, for everything.
Yeah, and I think also, if I may say this, one of the things I've heard over many, many, many years, people tend to call Kalymnos like the playground or a holiday destination, holiday grading, too many bolts. That doesn't mean you're still not doing serious climbing. It's still climbing with all the risks involved. So don't lose sight of that, please.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I would like to say how sorry and devastated we all are for the accident, and that our hearts really go out to Peter's family and loved ones. It's what we were trying to prevent. So I'm really sorry that we couldn't.
Thanks very much to Rebolt Kalymnos for talking to me. Go check out their website. I hope this video was informative. Let's stay safe out there, folks. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.